I want to jump into deal making. Having closed hundreds of deals in your career and seeing the full circle of the deals, as well as winning awards for them, what are the keys to getting deals done in an IB context?
Yeah, I love that question because it's a question, Pete, that we spend a lot of time on at RJ in educational setting that we call Banker U, which I'm guessing you and I may talk about a little bit later. And my partner Jim Bunn, whom I mentioned earlier a few years ago, made 10 rules of investment banking for having investment banking success. And so I'm going to reference a few of Jim's rules now in terms of how to be successful in an IB career. I'm not going to hit all of them, but I'll hit about half of them. Jim's first rule is to make calls, to be relentless. And by that, we're talking about calling on prospective clients. You just have to have a calling orientation, a plan, and you just have to get after it and make those calls. Secondly, Jim counsels bankers to listen well and be attentive. I think that's a great skill in almost any career path, but learning how to really digest what your client is saying and understand it before you respond, as opposed to thinking of your response while he or she is telling you about the problem. You really have to listen, be attentive, and understand the problem from the outset. The third rule that we have for our bankers is to be responsive. And by be responsive, we mean things like when you get an email, don't let it languish for 24 hours before you respond. If you're on a trip or you're in a deal or you're on a flight and you can't respond, at a minimum, you can probably respond enough to say, hey, thank you, Pete. I have your email. It's going to take me a couple of hours to get to it, or it might take me 24 hours to get to it, but I recognize I've got it and I'll be back to you shortly. That's the notion of responsiveness. So if you can't in the moment respond substantively, at least you can give the person reaching out to you a sense of when you can get back to them. And that idea of being hyper responsive, I think people really love that from their bankers. They feel like their bankers are really on top of it if they're doing that. Probably you ask really about how to get deals done. This next one, which is Jim's rule number 6, is one of the most important ones, maybe the most important ones of the group, and that is be persistent, be tenacious, and find solutions to problems. Clients expect bankers to solve problems, not tell them what the problems are. And so we really have to be creative around, okay, what is the problem and what are some really creative ways to work around it? And a lot of times that takes 3 or 4 iterations of thinking, maybe some quiet time, but you can't give up on a transaction. You got to pursue it relentlessly to the end. So that idea of being persistent, tenacious, gritty, and solution-oriented, I think, is probably the most valuable of all of the rules. I'll hit a couple more that we talk about a lot. The next one is stay on the high road. By stay on the high road, we mean, look, don't demean your competitors, don't demean your team members. Stay positive. Talk about what is working. If you have to talk about what's not working, figure out a constructive way to communicate it, and then talk about how you're going to, again, back to the earlier one, how you're going to solve that problem, how you're going to stay on that high road. And then the last thing I'll say is be organized and consistent. Organized meaning you've got a system for knowing what it is you're committed to doing to get a certain transaction done. And consistent is doing what you'll say you'll do. In other words, if you say, yes, I've got it, I'll call that client tomorrow and I'll get some additional diligence information for the team on that matter, then write it down so that it's organized, and then do it so that you're consistent in the execution of what you volunteer to do. It really falls in the category of make good on your own commitments, right? If you make a commitment, we expect you to follow through on it and complete it. Or if you can't, then to come back to us and say, hey, I made this commitment, not able to fulfill it for this XYZ reason. I'm going to make a different commitment or recommit on it, and then I'll come back to you. But be consistent in that way.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Really clear, and what a great list of examples, I think, for those listening today who are looking to have success in their career, and more importantly, be successful deal makers and support a successful deal process. These are great. Making calls and relentless. I think some of that's maybe been lost, dare I say it, in the COVID era, and maybe there's less desire to get out there and maybe prospect as much as before, but it's so key when you do. I love it.
You said something that triggered in my mind. So I flew to New York, where I am today, for this discussion from Atlanta, and I happened to be sitting next to the managing partner of McKinsey's Atlanta office on the flight, delightful woman named Tiffany Burns.
Oh.
And Tiffany and I had one of those airplane conversations that seems to go on for 2 hours. And one of the things she was saying was what you said, which was in the post-COVID era, it seems like we've all gotten a little bit relaxed, maybe too relaxed about getting out in front of clients and calling on them and the importance of doing that. I think that in an investment banking context or a consulting context, high touch, professional context, there is a bit of an expectation from the client that you're going to show up and see them face to face. And as you and I both know, so much is lost when you get away from the face to face context. It's an important reminder that it is still that personal touch business, and we have to lock into that and get on the airplane and go do it from time to time.
So with that unique journey, and I mentioned it in the introduction that you're a true entrepreneur at heart. So how has your entrepreneurial skills helped you succeed in your career in finance?
I think anyone who spent time in restaurants, retail, and fast food, they would understand that it is really a game of thin margins. You have to orchestrate a lot of things to just make a couple of dollars. What I've learned there is really the value of execution. You have to execute things perfectly in restaurants in order for you to make a little bit of money. So I took that lesson all the way through to where I am today. So the second thing I would say is, because I spent my early years out of university as an entrepreneur, I have never lost my self-employed mentality. And I say this to young people all the time. I think folks think they are an employee. I have an employer. And I would challenge them to say, no, you are actually self-employed. You're running a business called David Lam Inc. And it's no different. You have to think about your operations, how you serve your customers, your capabilities, your marketing, how do you build a brand, what type of investments you want to make into this company so that you can generate better business down the road. Really no different. And I find with that self-employed mentality, it gives you one very important thing, which is a sense of agency. So you run your own business. You happen to have a customer concentration issue with one employer, but you're, rather than dealing with a difficult boss, you're just dealing with a demanding customer or client. And that's how you get your business, right? From one client at a time.
I love that. And again, you got to get, like you say, it's getting out of the comfort zone again, isn't it? I can understand why you say that. If you're risk adverse and you're really comfortable in your role, and yet this is a lot of risk involved in stepping out. So well done to you and the team. And I'm glad it's been growing quickly. What's been key to your early success at Vestra?
I think this job at its core does not change between a bulge, between a boutique, established boutique, or forming a new boutique. You need to be laser focused on delivering for our clients, delivering exceptional quality. Our clients, and this isn't always obvious when you're an analyst and sometimes even associate, but our clients are demanding, like exceptionally demanding. They pay a lot of money to get a certain level of service and quality. And unlike what you're taught when you're growing up, you don't always get a second chance. And so you cannot have a lot of mishaps or failures. And so that tolerance is very low. So I think a part of our success is that we were so focused on maintaining and delivering the same quality and service that each of us and my partners have done our entire careers, and not giving anyone an excuse or a reason to doubt us. Like, we were relentless. And that's like product market fit for a startup, right? That's what the market demands, and reputation is everything. And so we were just focused on quality and brand recognition from the start.
Amazing. And again, with your level of experience and expertise, I can see why, and your dedication to being the best in the market.